Alrighty, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. First off, I want to welcome everybody to FAU Harbor Branch Oceanographic Institute and the John and Barbara Ferreira Ocean Science Lecture Series. My name is Sam McGuire, and I'm the Outreach Coordinator filling in for Gabby this week. For nearly 30 years, this series has been at the heart of our community outreach, and it's your involvement that keeps it going. We're glad to have you with us, and we hope that you enjoy learning about the great work underway here. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank everyone who supports FAU Harbor Branch. I'd especially like to recognize John and Barbara Ferreira, along with those who donate to the Ocean Science Lecture Series and make evenings like this possible. Community support impacts so much of what happens here, from the research taking place behind the scenes to the education and outreach programs we share with the community. So as you listen this season, you may find a topic or a project that sparks your interest. When that happens, there are lots of meaningful ways for you to get involved, from volunteering your time or sharing what you've learned with others, to making a gift in a way that's right for you, including some of the options you see behind me. If you are interested in exploring any of these opportunities, we are always happy to talk with you after the lecture. I also want to thank all of the staff here that help with this series, as well as our speakers. This program wouldn't be possible without them. Next, I have a few general announcements. As we get started, please take a moment to ensure that your cell phones are silenced. This season, lectures will take place each week through March 25th. Your registration covers access to all of them, so no need to sign up again. And please encourage your family and friends to join us by signing up as well. Each presentation is also available virtually, so hello and welcome to everyone who's tuning into our live stream. And they're recorded, so if you miss one or you want to watch one again, you can do so on our website. For those here in person, after each lecture, we will be hosting a meet and greet reception with our speaker, and of course, cookies in the gallery. We'd love for you to stay and encourage you to strike up a conversation with our staff, scientists, and students. This is a great way to learn a little bit more about FAU Harbor Branch. And be sure to mark your calendar for next week's lecture on February 25th, which is titled From Classroom to Coastline, Preparing the Next Wave of Ocean Leaders by Dr. Gabby McHenry. During this lecture, you will learn more about some of our great K-12 education and community outreach programs. And after the lecture, there'll be an open house style event where you can explore our lab spaces, sneak a peek at our life-size inflatable humpback whale, and hop aboard our floating field lab, The Discovery. So this brings us to today's presentation by Dr. Megan Davis, which is titled Our Story, the Queen Conch Lab. For 50 years, of which 30 have been at Harbor Branch Oceanographic Institute, Dr. Megan Davis has studied the queen conch life cycle and innovated ways to save the species. She is the world's foremost expert on queen conch aquaculture and has designed, implemented, and operated community-based queen conch hatcheries throughout the Caribbean. As the director of Florida Atlantic University's Queen Conch Lab program, Megan and her team work with fisherfolk and citizens in their communities to empower them to grow their own conch for restoration and conservation. So please join me in welcoming Megan.
Good afternoon, everyone, both here and also our virtual followers. Hello to you all. It's really great to have you here today. We can't wait to share with you our story of the Queen Conch. So the Queen Conch is such an important species in all Caribbean communities. It's valued for its nutrition, for its economic importance, and also for the purpose of it grazing in the seagrass meadows. So it's a very important herbivore there. It's been fished for many, many centuries now, and it is where in the Bahamas and other places in the Caribbean, there's whole communities that are formed just because of the Queen Conch. So it was 50 years ago, actually 51 years ago this year, that I fell in love with this beautiful conch. And when I fell in love with it, it was while I was in the Bahamas with my family sailing, and I saw this species, and the fishermen brought it to me, and I found all about it. I said, one day, there's going to be a need to grow this conch. I better learn how to grow it. And so that's what I set myself up to doing for all these decades now. It's a beautiful species. It is indeed delicious, but it's also important to our seagrass beds. So over the last 5 decades, the conch has been fished a lot. And it's been fished, and to the point of some places where it's getting so overfished that it's in jeopardy. And it's not only because of the fishing, but because of some of the habitat changes for where the conch lives. So the Queen Conch Lab, the team here, took this dilemma to heart. And we started off on a mission about 7 years ago to make sure we could grow the conch for the sake of the species and the ecosystem, and also for the people that depend upon it. So we've taken my years of knowledge and all the expertise of the team that you see here, and we're making a very bold vision. We're bringing together communities, bringing together fishermen, and also scientists and students and community members, and we're all working together to make a conch farm in every Caribbean country. So the first conch farm that we started under that mission and vision is in Puerto Rico with our partners Conservación Conciencia, and we work alongside the commercial conch, or the Commercial Fishing Association, that's there in Naguabo, Puerto Rico. After we established that facility there, then we started working with Bahamas National Trust in Great Exuma in the Bahamas. And this is our first mobile lab that we put in place in 2022. Developing a mobile lab was like really a game changer for us. That meant that we could go into many, many different Caribbean countries. And I'll share about that some more. This mobile lab is about 20 feet long by 8 feet wide, and it has everything you need to grow about 2,000 conch to 6 to 8 or 2 to 3 inches in size to be able to put out back in the ocean. And inside every mobile lab, there's a place that we can incubate the conch eggs and a place to raise the larvae. And a place to grow the little juveniles, all the way from those eggs that we bring in. So our mobile labs are built here at Harbor Branch in our state-of-the-art fabrication and manufacturing facility. And I want to give a shout out to our engineers. I see a couple of them here that help us to build these mobile labs so that they have everything. They have solar, they have all the water systems inside and the air inside, everything you'd need to grow conch. So over the last 7 years, our program has really grown across the Caribbean. And we have mobile labs. We have 9 of them now. We have mobile labs in Puerto Rico, in Jamaica, and also we have 3 places in the Bahamas. And we're looking forward to having more, maybe in the Turks and Caicos and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we have others that are interested in the mobile labs. This is in Grand Bahama. And it takes about 8 months for us to make a mobile lab. And once the mobile lab is ready, we put it on a ship. And then the ship takes it to the port that it needs to go to. We get a truck and pull the trailer behind, the mobile lab behind, and set it up with the local seawater source there. It gets tied down in case there might be a big storm or hurricanes. It can be moved if we need to. So it's very versatile in these vulnerable communities. This particular facility is part of a partnership with Blue Action Lab and is funded by Builders Initiative or Builders Vision. Once we get to a location, then myself and our team go to the location and we train. We train the fishermen, we train the students and the scientists, and also the community members, and it's all locally run. Everybody that works in the mobile labs, they learn about how to grow the Queen Conch from us. And we have another special program where we also go into the community, and we go into the schools, the primary schools in Grand Bahama, We've been to 10 of them now. And we work with the young students. We set up an aquarium with tiny conch inside. And we do this in partnership with Earth Care, with funding from McPike Zima Foundation. And it's very exciting to see how interested they are because they know that this is a cultural importance and icon to their community. So they get to learn firsthand. And we've been able to attract throughout the globe a lot of attention. And we've had renowned chefs. You see here, Chef Jose Andres, and also philanthropic gifts from Builders Vision. So we've been able to bring in funding to help make sure that we can continue to do this work in the communities. And just this week, we finished our 9th mobile lab. And it's going to Cape Eleuthera Institute in Eleuthera. It's a partnership with Harbor Branch and also Cape Eleuthera Institute and Longer Tables Fund, which is a philanthropic fund by Jose Andres. So you can see it's beautifully wrapped, and it's literally in Miami waiting to get on the ship. So we're so excited that this will be the next stop for this mobile lab. With the attention that we've been receiving from the various different labs that we have across the Caribbean, we've also had the attention from a group called Blue Carbon Plus, BC Plus. It's the Nature Conservancy and Conservation International. They've come together with other partners that work with us to look at the viability of the commercial enterprise of a Queen Conch farm. And we're also looking at the role that conch play with seagrass and seagrass plays with conch. So it's a very exciting project. We're about halfway through it, and we're very encouraged by the results that we're getting so far. So the conch really is at a tipping point. It's at a place where it's now a CITES species, CITES managed species. It has this threatened, almost endangered listing. And so it's really important that we, with our partners, come together and make sure that there's a future for this species. I'm going to call up my team, and they're going to share more about the Queen Conch in more details. I also want to give a shout out to a team member that lives in Maine. That's Becky Holt. Hello, Becky. And she's part of our team too. So today you'll be having some presentations by our staff as well, our team. So come on up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Robinson Basurto. I'm a Queen Conch Lab Operation Manager. So many of you may wonder, why do we care so much about Queen Conch? Queen Conch play a very critical and important role in a seagrass ecosystem. They are not just living there. They are actually active gardeners. As they move across the seagrass beds, they continuously grazing, helping keep these habitats productive, healthy, and balanced. Without grazers like Queen Conch, this ecosystem, the seagrass ecosystem, can become overgrown and lose that balance. But what exactly are they grazing on? One of the common misconceptions is that the Queen Conch eat the seagrass itself. Actually, they don't. What they eat is a microscopic algae called diatoms. Diatoms grow as a thin film on a seagrass blades, rocks, and sand. Even though they are tiny, as you see in the picture, they are incredibly nutritious and form the base of the marine food web. So one of the questions that not too many people expect is, where does the shell color come from? Here is interesting. They're coming from the natural pigments found in the diatoms the Queen Conch eats. As they feed, they absorb those pigments and incorporate it into the shell as it grows. So when you see a very colorful shell, what you see in is a record of its diet. So now, how do we provide that the same food in restoration aquaculture? We recreate the natural food source using a system called algal turf scrubber, or ATS. This system grows diatoms on textured surface like what the conch encountered on the wild. So the conch grazes directly from those surfaces using their proboscis, as they will do it in the seagrass beds. It is a simple, natural, and sustainable way to feed a herbivore. But why does all of this matter? Why it is important? By understanding what the conch eats and how it shapes the growth and the color of the shell, we are able to design better systems to support a healthy queen conch population and a healthier seagrass systems. So now I'm going to pass into Amanda Matthews.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Matthews and I'm the Research and Education Coordinator in the Queen Conch Lab, and my area of specialty is conch breeding and egg production in captivity. And in Florida we work with the milk conch, which is a close relative of the threatened queen conch. This is a milk conch shell, so you can see they're similar to the queen conch, but they have a white inner shell lip rather than a pink one, and they're a little bit smaller. And we started with one solo female milk conch who we named Buttercream. All of our milk conch, they have dairy-themed names. And we were feeding her this algal turf scrubber that Robinson mentioned, and it's very nutritious, and something unusual happened. And it's unusual because she hasn't been around males in years, and that is that she started laying eggs. And these eggs were unfertilized, but we decided to take this opportunity to test the concept of a captive breeding colony. So here you can see, this is Buttercream. She's on her algal turf scrubber. These are her unfertilized eggs. They come out in a strand. And then, so we got some males and females from the Florida Keys. This is one of her new suitors. His name is Colby Jack. And they're mating, and she's also eating algae while they're mating. So after 2 months of getting these new conch and feeding them lots of algae, and there was a lot of mating as well, we got some fertilized eggs. So this right here is one of our beautiful male milk conch, and you can see he has that white shell lip. And then this orange right here, this is actually called the mantle, and this is the organ that secretes the calcium carbonate that makes the shell. So here's a video of him eating some of the algae from the algal turf scrubber. You can see he's pulling that algae in with his proboscis, and you'll also notice that he has very prominent eyes. They have eyes on the end of eye stalks, and they have a tentacle that's a sensory organ. And this is the foot. This is the part of the conch that they use for locomotion, and this is an operculum, and that's actually what we call a conch burp. So they do that often after they finish eating. And so here's some more conch anatomy. We have male and female. So here's the male over here on the right. They have a verge. And then this is the female on the left, and she has what's called an egg groove. And once the male fertilizes her eggs, they will travel down this egg groove, and they'll exit at the bottom of her foot, and then she takes her proboscis, her mouth, and her foot, and she forms them into an egg mass. So here's some conch when they're mating. They have internal fertilization, so that means they have to actually come together and find each other to mate. So the male will mount the female and he'll create a suction on the back of her shell, so she'll actually walk around and sort of drag him along with her. So here's some wild queen conch. That's the verge going into the female. And then these are some of the milk conch in our breeding colony. This is one of our females. On average, females are a bit larger than male conch. There's Colby Jack again. And this is actually an egg mass that's along her shell lip here. So they oftentimes will mate and lay eggs at the same time, and they can actually mate with up to 2 males while a female is laying an egg mass. And there can be multiple fathers in an egg mass as well, so a lot of genetic diversity. And it takes her about up to 24 hours to finish laying that egg mass. And this is what it looks like when it's finished. It's a crescent-shaped mound, and that's formed by her shell lip. That's what gives it that shape. And there can be up to 500,000 eggs in an egg mass, but less than 1% of them will survive in the wild. And they take about 4 days to incubate, and then around 9 p.m. they hatch. And this is a microscope image of the eggs in the egg strand. So our breeding colony has been very successful. We have over 475 egg masses that have been laid so far in this study, and we've achieved this by recreating the conditions of their summer breeding grounds. So we basically make them think that it's an endless summer. So we keep the temperature a consistent 28 degrees Celsius or about 85 Fahrenheit. We give them clean sand so they have good laying substrate and plenty of food, plenty of live algae. And then this video right here, this is one of our best egg layers, Gouda. So she's laying an egg mass, yes. And you can see the egg strand, this white line right here, it's coming out of her foot, and she's taking her proboscis and she is forming that egg mass. And now I'm gonna pass it over to Sky, who's gonna tell you about the conch babies and the larvae.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sky Flegg, and I'm a graduate student, a master's student in the Marine Science and Oceanography program here at FAU. My research focuses on how the diet of our larvae, or our veligers, as you'll hear me call them, larvae and veligers are the same thing in this case, and the veligers change their growth, development, and survival based on their diet, so that's what I'm studying. And I'll be giving you a brief overview on how we feed our veligers in those mobile labs that you've seen, as well as here at Harbor Branch. And so the first question is, what do our veligers eat? They eat phytoplankton. Phytoplankton are microscopic marine plants that are found throughout our oceans. And so this is what the veligers would be eating in the wild as well. But in aquaculture, we have the ability to separate out our phytoplankton by species, grow them at much higher densities than you would find in the ocean, and grow them without contamination, which is really helpful for our veligers' survival. So all of these cultures, there's different species in all of these flasks. Because they are plants, we do provide them with light, as you can see in the background, as well as air through all of these tubing lines. And although all the flasks look very similar when you're just looking with the naked eye, the species do look very different under the microscope. So 2 of the species that we feed our veligers are Isochrysis galbana on the top of the screen. And you can see that those are a little more round or circular, whereas Chaetoceros gracilis on the bottom is a bit boxier and forms kind of that chain-like formation that you're seeing. Our veligers you saw briefly earlier, but this video really showcases their cilia, and those cilia are the hair-like structures you see coming off of those lobes. And so they actually use these, they extend them and grab individual cells of phytoplankton that are in the water. They capture them, and then those cilia are rotating in a conveyor belt-like fashion. So they're delivering the phytoplankton cells to their mouth for ingestion. As for physically feeding our veligers, this is an example of one of our aquaculture technicians in Grand Bahama, Lachelle. She has a graduated cylinder here in her hand. So she uses that to measure out a specific volume of this beautiful golden brown algae. And she gently is pouring it into this tank full of veligers. There is aeration in the tank, so that allows the phytoplankton to disperse evenly and all the veligers come into contact with their food. Once the veligers are eating, we can see them use their cilia. So each of those individual dots are phytoplankton cells. You can see this veliger is extending that cilia to reach out and catch the cells from the water column. Lastly, our veligers have a transparent digestive gland or gut. So we look at them under the microscope after we've fed them to check and make sure that they're eating enough food. In this first photo, you can see this brown kind of oval shape is this veliger's gut, and it's dark brown because it's eaten a lot of that golden brown phytoplankton. If it were to be more transparent or pale, that would indicate to us that that veliger is not receiving enough food. This video also showcases what our veligers look like under the microscope. So again, you can see over here that kind of dark gut that we love to see, and it indicates to us that our veligers are happy and healthy. And now I will pass it over to Dylan to talk to you a little bit more about our conch.
Hello, everyone, and thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Dylan Gronley, and I am the aquaculture technician here for the Queen Conch Lab. And today, I'm going to be sharing with you a lesser-known fact about the Queen Conch, and that is that they can actually produce pearls. And so Queen Conch pearls are a bit different from the traditional oyster pearls that we're all familiar with. And that's because they don't have the shiny mother-of-pearl or nacre-based coating that the oyster pearls have. Instead, they're made up of the same calcium carbonate material that they use to make up their shell. And that's part of what gives the pearl their soft porcelain-like appearance. Now, conch pearls are extremely rare, with only about 1 in 10,000 wild conch actually ever producing a pearl, and the most exceptional quality are only found in about 1 in 1 million animals. So that rarity, as well as the striking pink color and this very unique flame structure inside the pearls, really does make each conch pearl truly unique and special. Now, you might be wondering, how do conch form pearls? Well, in order to understand that, we need to know another fact about the queen conch, and that's that they actually keep their same shell their entire lives. So from the moment they hatch from those tiny little eggs that we've seen, they carry it with them and grow with it their entire lives. And they do that by slowly laying down that shell material over many, many years in that outward fashion, showcasing and forming this beautiful spiral that we all recognize in the conch. So how does that relate to pearls? So you can see here in this scanning electron microscope photo here, the big one, that's actually how the conch lay down its shell material, that fibrous calcium carbonate. And so that relates to pearls because a conch pearl forms when an irritant such as a grain of sand or a parasite enters that mantle tissue that Amanda was talking about. And as a defensive mechanism, the conch actually forms a pearl sac around that irritant. And then it slowly lays down, after months or even years, that calcium carbonate in that cross-lamellar-like fashion to form those beautiful flames and those pearls that we see. And you might be wondering, well, if they're so exceptionally rare and beautiful, is it possible to cultivate queen conch pearls the same way that oyster pearls are? And that's exactly what Dr. Megan Davis and Dr. Hector Acosta-Salmon did here at Harbor Branch 20 years ago. After 25 years of researchers trying to figure out a way to cultivate queen conch pearls, they succeeded in only 6 months and successfully patenting the technology. Fast forward to today, where the Queen Conch Lab and our partners at Blue Action Lab down in Grand Bahama are working to refine and improve these techniques in order to create a sustainable pearl industry with the goal of preserving the life of the animal, supporting conservation, and creating meaningful economic opportunities for Caribbean communities. And so with that, I will pass it on to the Queen of Conch, Dr. Megan Davis. Thank you.
Okay, many thanks to the team. Another round of applause for the team. I have the great pleasure of introducing two special guests today. And one of our guests, Don Chilton, has flown in from Rhode Island. And Don is known as a musician that plays conch shells and also is a trumpeter. And so Don and I met probably about 2 years ago on Instagram. And if you don't follow us on Instagram, I'll put a little plug out there at Queen Conch Lab. But Don started to follow us, and I was so fascinated by the fact that he could play the conch music, the shell itself. And so Don has taken quite an interest in our work. He's been to Puerto Rico lab, the one that I mentioned. He's also been to Curacao, to that lab there. And today was the first day we got to meet in person. And it's really awesome. Like, it's a dream come true to have him here today. And you're going to have a special treat as the program goes on. But I also want to introduce to you Eric Addis. And Eric and I have actually known each other, we figured, about 25 years when our sons grew up together. And Eric is our volunteer here at Harbor Branch in the Queen Conch Lab as the artist in residence. And he is the founder of the Healing Power of Creativity. And he does beautiful work with both photography and videography, and also works with sounds from the environment. And so today they have, not today, but today you're going to get to see a video that they produced. This is the first time we're showing this. So you're having the premiere of this film today. And so I'm very excited to be able to have both Don and Eric here. But Eric's going to come up and tell you a little bit about this film. And then we're going to watch a film, and then you'll also have a special treat by Don as well. So come on up, Eric.
This is so exciting. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Megan. This is really a very special treat. I'm Eric Addis, and as Megan mentioned, I am the artist in residence here at the Queen Conch Lab. I'm fascinated by the natural world, and especially its subtle cycles, patterns, and rhythms. And I use data, adaptive, generative ambient music, and field recordings to create immersive sound environments. My intention is to evoke a sense of wonder and curiosity by bringing those cycles and patterns to life through music. What you'll hear in the video are underwater recordings I made of conch grazing, as we've been hearing about, sliding, as well as ocean waves crashing on the distant shore. When I shared those recordings with Don, he got very excited. And we agreed to collaborate on a piece to celebrate the Queen Conch and support the Queen Conch Lab, whose inspiring work you've been hearing about tonight. Along with the natural sounds I described, you'll also hear some of my infinitely evolving ambient music, and Don playing some beautiful melodies that weave in and out as he plays a variety of conch shells. So we're excited to present the world premiere of Conch Shell Reverie for you here this afternoon. So enjoy.
All right, thank you very much. So my name's Don Chilton, and I've been playing the trumpet now for 50 years. Thank you. And I was in the Navy band for 26 years, playing professionally. I still play professionally, but about 10 years ago, I discovered the conch shell as a musical instrument. And it's really not that much of a stretch because the conch shell is the original trumpet. For thousands and thousands of years, different cultures have been using the conch shell as a way to communicate across distances. They've used them in war times. They use them for jewelry. I mean, you name it. They have been used for thousands and thousands of years. So for me, learning to play the conch shell trumpet was not much of a stretch. And so I'm just delighted to be here today and share the music that Eric Addis and I have got to work on. What an absolute treat. And so the conch shell, in particular the Queen Conch, has a very near and dear place in my heart because of the plight of the Queen Conch. And when I learned about Dr. Davis's work that she's doing, and then eventually learned about Eric, it just was a no-brainer that we figure out some type of real musical tribute collaboration in honor of the Queen Conch. And so I hope you really enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Don. Thank you so much. Thank you. We're going to open up now to questions, and we're delighted to be able to share more knowledge with you or anything that you have that's curious that you'd like to know more about. The question is, does the Queen Conch have any natural predators? They have quite a number of predators. When they get larger, they only have an octopus that can get in or a nurse shark. But when they're younger, they also are eaten by turtles and rays and lobsters and crabs. So they have quite a number of different predators there. Another question? Over here? Okay, the question has to do with the environment and how the waters are getting warmer and how there's other types of things that are changing in the ocean. And the conch, having a shell that's made out of calcium carbonate, is very susceptible to changes in pH in the water. And so what can happen when there's rising CO2 in the air and then it changes the pH of the water, it can dissolve the shells. And you can remember when Sky was showing you the little baby larvae, they have a very fragile shell. So that's one of the things that we want to make sure that there's still enough capacity of the ocean to grow the shell for the conch. So that's one example. Another question over here? Okay, so the question is, if you come across the conch and it's upside down like this, is it a dead conch or not? Sometimes they do flip themselves over, but in most cases it could have been a harvested conch, and they harvest it by knocking a hole in it. So if you see a hole in it like this, that means that it's been knocked and the conch has been removed. But they are quite amazing the way sometimes they get flipped over and they can use their big muscle. And you saw that in Amanda's presentation, how they have the big muscle. They can come forward with their foot and their operculum and flip themselves back over again. So the question is, what do we do with the conch when they get to a certain size? So we like to raise them in the aquaculture, in the mobile labs and the other labs. until they're about 1 year old, until they're about 2 to 3 inches or 6 to 8 centimeters. And then they're getting safe enough to go out in the wild. We protect them for a little bit. We acclimate them to the wild in a pen. And sometimes they can be grown in a pen, but that's the time that they're released. And it takes them about 4 to 5 years until they get to this size. This is a particularly big conch. But the lip is what tells how old the conch is. And so it really takes another 2 years, and 2 or 3 years until they're sexually mature. The survival rate of the conch. So in the wild, the survival rate is less than 1%. And so in aquaculture, we can increase that considerably because we take away all the predators. So it really depends on how many we want to grow. And so we'll put in an egg mass, and then we always are trying to grow the ones that are healthiest and the fastest. And so sometimes we can get like 5, 10%, or even higher. Is there any restriction on harvesting the conch? Yes, there are many restrictions on harvesting the conch. For instance, in the Bahamas, there's no export, but the conch have to have a lip. So that's the main thing. In other countries, there's quotas. You can only catch so many, and then they close down the fishery. Breeding season sometimes is a season closure. So all throughout the Caribbean, there's different types of regulations, but they're also under CITES, the Convention of International Trade of Endangered Species, Appendix 2, which means they can be fished, but they have to have a fisheries management plan. So those are the type of guidelines.
What part of the conch is in my conch shell? And also, when you're harvesting the meat, about what is how much does it weigh?
Okay, so the question is, what part do you eat, and how much does it weigh? And the meat itself. So a conch, you might not know this, but these two conchs, this one's actually older than this one. Okay? So you can't go by size alone. You have to make sure that it has a lip. And so in some environments, they grow faster than others, like this one. This one's from Puerto Rico, this one's from Bahamas. It doesn't mean because one's from Puerto Rico or Bahamas, it might be their environment. And Robinson talked a lot about them eating diatoms and being in a really healthy grazing area. So that will depend. So the meat could be different, but it's usually about a quarter pound of meat per conch comes out that's edible. And it's the foot that's eaten. It's the foot, the part that comes out, the main part of the conch that's eaten. Yes, sir.
Is there any use or value after the meat has been harvested for the remaining shells?
Yes, is there any value of the shell? And I think Dawn touched on that too. Of course, the horn, the shell itself, and then there's jewelry that can be made, the earrings that I have, the pendant that I have, the pearls. Well, the pearls aren't really part of the shell, but that's something that's produced. There's lots of uses. So the shell is a very beautiful shell, and so it has lots of uses. Yes, sir.
Okay. To get the conch out, you make a hole. If there is no hole, is it more valuable than like the shell to have a hole in it?
Okay, so is there any more value in the shell if it doesn't have a hole in it? These both have holes in it. Well, if it was Don Chilton up here, he'd say, I want a shell without a hole so that he can make a good horn. So there is some value depending on the use of it. Yeah. Yes, sir. Ooh, yes. What's the oldest conch I've ever found? Well, in Puerto Rico with my colleague Raimundo Espinoza with Conservation en Conciencia, we went to Old San Juan, to the Bay of San Juan, and I saw the oldest conch I'd ever seen. The shell was so thick. The shell looked like a rock. It had a lot of holes in it from boring sponges. And I wish I had it here with me so I could show you, but that was old, and I think it's about 40 years old. So that's how old we think that they lived to. Yes? What are some of the parasites? What's living on the shell? Well, you know, it's a lot of algae. They love to camouflage themselves. Like if you look at the outside of these shells, they look very camouflaged. So algae, sponges, corals, oysters, all kinds of things like to grow on it. Because they're very slow moving, so it really allows for a lot of things to settle. How are we doing, Brandon? One more question. Yes, sir. Oh. Yes, there's lots of conch that live in the waters in Florida. One more. Okay, this was a good ending one, I suppose, right? The love story with me and the conch. You can see I look like a conch, right? You know, it was just one of those things. When I was 15 or 16 and I was in the Bahamas, I was very fortunate to sail there. I lived in Miami, and the fisherman came to me and showed me this conch, and I just instantly fell in love. It was so beautiful. I was concerned for it because it tasted good. And it also was very slow moving. And so it was going to be easy to harvest. That was back in the 70s. There wasn't a lot of conch. There was still conch harvested back then, but nothing like it is today. And I just had this like immediate passion for the animal. And I said, I am going to go to school and I'm going to learn to grow conch. And that's exactly what I did. I went to the Turks and Caicos. I lived on Pine Key when I was 21. My parents were like, what are you doing? They were like, you know, this was the 70s. This was actually 1981, and there was no internet. There was no phones. There was nothing, and they're sending their daughter off to this remote island. And so I went there, and I lived in a tent. And I lived there for 2 years being a conch farmer, and then I became the co-founder of a conch farm. And when I became a co-founder of a conch farm, I lived on a houseboat, and I had a wooden car. So I lived a very remote life, but it allowed me to grow conch. And I'm just so happy to be here today to say we're still doing that. We have a remarkable team, partners, and having all of you here today supporting us and really looking out for the conch and wanting to know more is just amazing, and want to thank you all. So with that, we'll be around to answer any more questions.
All right. Thank you, Megan. Thank you for the rest of the Queen Conch Lab and your collaborators. Please join us out in the gallery for the cookie reception. You can ask Megan and the rest of the team any questions you have. And then again, please join us next week for Dr. Gabby McHenry's presentation. Thank you.